Hi everybody and welcome. I'm really excited today because I've just gotten in my Roman Schmal watercolors, which I ordered a few weeks ago, and I have never used them before, and this is doubly exciting because I've never used pan paints before either. I've been doing watercolor for about 30 years now, and I've always used tubes, so this is going to be a really new experience for me. So I've gotten 11 colors here, and we're going to just swatch them out and just kick back and relax, I think, hopefully. So let me show you what my cards are like. These are my swatch cards. And what I do is I just have the name, the brand, if the brand has a number. This means that it's medium staining, non-granulating, pigments down here, and light fastness is here. This is Light Fast 8, which according to Roman Schmal's system, which is the blue wool scale, and 8 is very light fast and it will remain unchanged for 200 plus years. So all of the ones that I bought are either an 8 or a 7. So 7, I'll just go ahead and tell you, is light fast and it will remain unchanged for 100 to 200 years. So they will definitely outlast me. So, and then I have my strip here to see how granulating or opaque it is. It'll help me see that. And then down here, this also tells us that it is semi-transparent. If it was just a plain square with nothing in the middle, it would be transparent. One line is semi-transparent. A line with half of the box shaded is semi-opaque, and then a whole shaded box would be opaque. So let's get started. I watched a few other videos on these paints, and they said that it's helpful to put them in the fridge for a few minutes because they can stick to the inside piece of wax paper. So I've stuck them in the fridge for just a few minutes to see if that's helpful, if it makes any difference. And mine is sticking pretty good on there. Okay, it's the outside of the wrapper. So I'm very excited because these also have honey in them, and I use Sennelier watercolors almost exclusively, that and Winsor Newton, and they're a honey-based watercolor, which is something that I really, really enjoy. Okay, so I'm just going to stick PY 181 on this, which is golden yellow. And it's a color that I've not used before, so I'm really excited to swatch this out. Okay, I'm very excited. Let's see what this is going to do. Now I'm using a very cheap watercolor paper. I think I have it here somewhere. The Canson XL, which is a very cheap watercolor paper, but I have a lot of watercolor paints, so it gets expensive to do this on expensive paper. So what I do, since I'm working with cheap paper and it's a very lightweight paper, is I just barely wet the back just a little bit. This will help keep it from buckling when I do the swatch. And then I like to wet my paper just a little bit. I work very wet when I'm doing my watercolors. I am not a dry brush person at all, so I like to have a lot of water down. It's what I'm used to. So I'm just going to get a lot of water down, and then I'm going to see what it's like to use a pan. So it's very interesting. I have a tendency to just get out on my palette as much watercolor from a tube that I think I'm going to need to use for that session, and then I just keep very detailed notes of what I'm using. It's very creamy, which is lovely. Ooh, that is a gorgeous color. Okay, so this is the golden yellow PY 181, which, if I remember correctly, is a Roman Schmal only pigment. I tried to get a few of their exclusive pigments. It's very nice, very pretty, very golden. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside to dry, and then we will get out the next one, which is going to be Permanent Orange. And their Permanent Orange is number 313. It is a staining color, non-granulating. The pigment is PO59, which is one that I do not have. Light fastness is a grade 8, and it is transparent. So let's open this up. It would help if I had a sharp knife in my X-Acto. A sharp blade in my X-Acto knife, which I do not, and I very rarely do. There we go. And if you look at their label, they hand paint these with the exact pigment, which is lovely because you can see exactly what you have. There's no color shift. And if you look at their label on the back, it tells you what the name is, Permanent Orange. It's their number 313 in their line. And over here, it tells you the pigment number, PO59, with the number 8, which is its light fastness, S for staining, NG for non-granulating, and then the clear square, which is going to be transparent. And so far, the wax paper is pulling off wonderfully well. I almost forgot to write down what this is, which is PO 59. And I can see a little bit of what I've heard others talk about is there seems to be a little residual wax on top of the watercolor from the paper lining, because it's not really coming up as well as the permanent yellow did. It's not coming up as easily. It's like there's a resist on top, and I'm having a little trouble working up some more paint. Gonna get a little more water and just sort of see if I can work around that. There we go. It's doing better. Okay. And again, a beautiful pigment. It's a little bit duller than the last one. But I still like it. Orange is a color that I have just recently started to appreciate. It's not a color that I ever liked to work with before, but I'm getting a little older now. things that used to bother me don't seem to bother me as much anymore. I guess I'm a little laid back, a little more mellow, and I'm beginning to appreciate things that I wouldn't have, say when I was 20 or 30. And pull out our next one, which is going to be golden orange. And this one seems to be a little bit of a darker orange shade than the last one, just by looking at it quickly. I don't have any experience with unwrapping pans, so this is all new to me and very interesting. Oh, this one's sticking. Can you see how it's just sort of sticking there? Even though I did put it in the fridge for about 10 minutes, it is seriously sticking. So let's see what I can do about that. I would just get out my palette knife, but because the time of day, I have my windows covered, and unfortunately it's in a holder in the windowsill. So this is actually a little fingernail tool that I keep at my desk. I bought it especially for the paints because sometimes when you get a tube of dry paint, you've got to scoop the paint out, and I find that it's very, very handy for doing that. Some of my paints are 30 years old. I use them certain colors very rarely, so they get dry over time, and I find myself having to scoop them out a little bit. And wow, this really is difficult to deal with. So I will take some time later on and salvage that. I will not waste it or throw it away, but for time's sake, I will just go ahead and swatch this out. And I am using distilled water. Since the paints are honey-based paint, especially since also I live on a farm and we have a well, I find that it's really good to use the distilled water so that you don't get any extras in your paint, because it can cause the honey to start to mold. Especially since I live in West Virginia and we have a high humidity here and a high mold content. I have to be careful with my paints to just sort of go the extra distance and keep them as clean as I can, so that I don't come back the next day to find fuzzy things growing in them. As you can see, I just love to play with the water. And I found that with honey-based paints, especially when you're using natural hair brushes, that the paint will kind of grab at your brush a little bit, more so than like with Winsor & Newton or Daniel Smith paints. Oh wow, very bright, very bold. That's something that I am noticing about these, is they do tend to be more bold than the Sennelier paints. I like Sennelier because I love to layer. And so I'm not the type of person that just wants to put down one layer and then be done with it. I admire people that can do that, but I'm not one of them. So I do like to build up my colors over several glazes or layers, and you don't really need to do that with these. Next we have Potter's Pink. This is a color that I do have already. I have it in the Winsor & Newton, which was the first brand to come out with it. It's one of the oldest pigments still available. And if we look at this, it is mid-staining, granulating, of course, as PR233 is in almost every brand. Its light fastness is an 8, which means it's very light fast. It will definitely outlive me. And they have it listed as semi-transparent, which I've always wondered about. We'll have to see what this looks like, because to me, Potter's Pink just seems more of an opaque color when I use it. But then I don't always see things as other people do anyways, so I'm used to being different. See, hopefully this will come off easily. Yeah, it's coming off, and I can already see just a little bit of a residue there and a little bit of leftovers that have peeled away from, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but you can see where some of the paper from the wax paper has stuck to the Potter's Pink. So I really wouldn't recommend just opening this up and trying to start painting on something that's important to you right away. You're going to have to get rid of that wax, because you're not going to want that to end up in your painting. Okay, so we have PR233, and I think I didn't do this one. Let's go back and label the golden orange, or I will have them all mixed up. And I am a fairly messy person with just about everything that I do. You should see the kitchen after I cook supper. It's not good. So Potter's Pink is one of my favorite colors. Just find it so earthy and mellow, not in your, it's a pink color that's not in your face. It sort of laid back for a watercolor. Yeah, and did you see the water bubble up on top there? It definitely has I can see the wax residue coming off of there. As a matter of fact, I think I might just try to pull that off and wash it away so that it's not interfering with my I hate to waste watercolor, but I'm just going to get that top layer of fuzz and wax off. Okay, now let's see what we've got to work with. And it's very creamy. I'd almost call it velvety. Very mauve color. Oh, that's just gorgeous. Yeah, I think I prefer this. Hopefully there's not going to be a huge drying shift in color. It's a very pretty color. I think it's going to be like another one of my favorite colors, which is Cerulean Blue. It's not going to have a high tinting strength in mixes. You're going to have to use a lot to for it to have any influence in a mix. But that's okay. I bought far more tubes of Cerulean Blue than I have any other color. For that very reason, it just doesn't have a very high tinting strength, and I use it in one of my favorite mixes, which I will share with you guys at some point. Okay, now we have Mineral Violet, which is going to be PB29 and PV19. I used to be much more of a purist. Anybody who's gone to art school, which I did in the 80s, will have been taught, you know, single pigments only. The more colors you have together, the more of an adulteration of color you're going to end up with. But I found that, once again, the older I get, the less I care about rules and convention and what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do and what's okay and what's not okay. And I was once kicked out of a juried watercolor show because I did a painting of a rusted bicycle and some dead leaves, and the entire painting was brown. And so the person who was jurying the show said that that's not a true watercolor because everything was in brown. And so, you know, it can be a little frustrating when you're dealing with rules and whatnots about what's acceptable and what's okay and what's not. But that's okay, you know, to each his own, and it's all right that he felt that way. It just wasn't the right show for me, apparently. Okay, so this is Mineral Violet, and it is a mix of PB29 and PV19. And I find mixes are really good if you're going to be doing a large painting in a certain color and you just want to have that same color every single time. You know, it's nice to be able to pull it straight out of a tube and you don't have to worry about if you haven't mixed enough, because I never mix enough. Trying to get that exact same color again. Okay, so the Mineral Violet is number 334. It's mid-staining, granulating. Its light fast level is an 8, and it is a transparent color. And I have a feeling that this is just going to be lovely with the little swatch on top of its wrapper. Is the same. Again, I'm getting some of the wax on top, but it's not as bad as the Potter's Pink was, so I think I'm just gonna go ahead. Oh, and you know what I did? I didn't pre-wet my paper, so let's try to get that back in there and pre-wet this paper. And I love to see my rinse water change colors as I'm swatching things out. It's, you know, you have the light coming through and it's hitting the water and the pigment, and you're like, oh, that is just such a lovely color that I've just managed to mix there. I wish I had a tube of that. And so then I try to remember and take notes of what I've swatched together and try to go back and create that later. Of course, I've just done oranges with now purple, so my water is slowly going brown. So not so pretty at the moment. And this is a partially staining color, so and it looks like it's pretty highly pigmented, so I don't think it's going to take a lot to get a nice, oh no, look at that. Yeah, that's just gorgeous. The funny thing is, purple is probably my favorite color, has been since I was small, but it's I don't own very many purples. I tend to mix my own purple. I probably can go back to art school and thank my professors for that, which is okay. That's fine. But I think it was Otto Kano swatching this out, and it was just so gorgeous that I just had to order it. That is a beautiful, beautiful purple. Okay, now my favorite color, I don't know why, because it's not my favorite color in real life, but it's my favorite color to paint with, is Cerulean Blue. And I am on a quest to have every Cerulean Blue by every brand that is out there. So I ordered both the PB35 and the PB36 Cerulean Blues from Roman Schmal. And we'll start with the PB35, which they call Cobalt Coelin Blue. It is their number 406. It is mid-staining, granulating, PB35 Light Fast 8, which is very light fast, and it is semi-opaque. So, and I'm really liking the swatch on the front. So let's open this up and see what we've got. And it's really glued down to the foil wrapper. So I'm trying to get these off without tearing them up, because I would like to hang on to them. Hopefully this is going to come off easily and not still. Oh, no, it is sticking. It is sticking. Yep, that's pretty seriously sticking. Okay, so let's see. What do I have here that I can grab that's going to help with this? I think we're back to this. I have a board up in front of my window because it's midday here, and the sun, I usually don't even sit in here midday and work because the sun is just so bright this time of day. And so I can't get to my tools right now, which is on the other side of that board, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to sit here. But unfortunately, I've spent several days trying to get this filmed, and it never seems to be the right time. So I took advantage of my husband being here and being able to help me with the camera, because that is not my thing. It is definitely his thing. He has a degree in communication, so it's much more his thing than my thing. Alright. Like I said, we'll keep that, set it over to the side, and pull that off later, because I'm not gonna waste that. So P, B, 35, and I'm having some trouble writing these out. I usually swatch when I'm not feeling well. I deal with a couple of autoimmune issues, and so there are times when I'm just not up to painting, because my muscle control is not what I would prefer it to be. So those are the days that I swatch my new colors and just do like bookkeeping things and that sort of stuff. So today's one of those days. But I still have enough control to where I can at least sit and play a little. And so that's what I do. And I need to give a shout out to the girl from In Liquid Color. Please go check out her channel. It's awesome. I first saw her swatch out her colors on a card fairly close to this, and I thought, oh, that's an awesome idea. And beforehand, I would just take one large sheet of paper and I would sort of just swatch out what I had currently at that time, and that's what I'd go with. And then I saw her idea, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to adopt that. And so I have. So thank you, and please check out her channel.
What's it called?
In Liquid Color. Okay, I'm very excited. Let's see what we've got. Oh yeah, it's very creamy, granulating. You can see it starting to granulate already. Low tinting strength though. That means that it's not going to overwhelm mixtures. It's a little bit weak, but it's just such a gentle color, and I love the granulating effect that it has. And I have a mixture for, I love stormy skies. Storms are kind of a thing with me. It kind of goes back to some family history, but I do this stormy sky mixture that I love, that I'll show you guys one day. But yeah, that's just gorgeous. Okay, I'm letting those dry, and then we'll go back in and do another swipe down the sides to get a little bit of a layering effect, and then we'll also do some glazing cards also to see how they glaze. Since I do so much glazing, I glaze out every color that I get on a card, just to see, because there are some paints that just do not glaze well, and it's good to know what those are. Like PY150 Azo Yellow. You don't want to glaze with that, because it is not a pretty color to glaze with. I know it's a favorite color of a lot of artists out there, but it does not glaze well. Okay, this is going to stick too. Now, they could be starting to stick because they've been sitting out for a while, and it is midday and a little warm in the studio. So I might just pause this and pop them back into the fridge just a little bit. So let's do this one, and I think I'll pop the others back into the fridge. Pause it and pop them back in so that they can cool down a little bit more. Okay, so this is the other cerulean, PB36, which they call Cobalt Cerulean Blue. It is their number 407. It is mid-staining, granulating, PB36. It's Light Fast 8, and it is semi-opaque. So let's see what this is. And I can tell just right off the bat that it's going to be a much darker color than what I consider the true cerulean blue, which was the PB35, even though cerulean is not in the Roman Schmal name for PB35. Let's see what we've got. And I am, if you're interested in my brush, I am using a Winsor & Newton Series 7 Sable, Kolinsky Sable brush. I'm not using a new brush. This is one of my old brushes. But I've fallen in love with the Kolinsky Sable brushes, and it's just what I go to now. For so many years in school and even afterwards, I just used student grade brushes and paper, and it truly does make a difference to have an artist grade brush and paper along with your watercolors. It's a beautiful color. It's just beautiful. And it's already starting to granulate. It's just lovely. Okay, well, let's pause here. I'm going to stick the watercolors in the fridge to let them cool down a little bit more, and we'll be right back. Okay, I've gotten the paints back out of the fridge, and the next one we're going to swatch out is Green Earth. This pigment is number 105. It's medium staining, non-granulating. Its pigment is PG23, which is an earth pigment, and its light fast is number 8, which is very good. And it is transparent. And I am not sure why I chose to get green earth out of all of the pigments that I could choose, because it's not a high tinting color, but I do paint a lot of plants and landscapes. That's mostly what I do. And when I saw it being swatched out, I don't know, I really liked it. I have this pigment in Snillier, I believe it is. And I just had to get it. So we're going to see what it does. And green is another one of those colors that I tend to never go straight to a tube. I usually always mix my own. So why I've chosen to buy 2 greens, I'm not sure, but we'll see if they get used. Well, I think I am glad I put them back in the fridge for a little bit, because that came off extremely easy. And since it's such a low tinting, low strength paint, I'm going to work up a good little amount to make sure that I get a chance to really see what it's going to look like. It's a very creamy paint, very smooth paint. Oh, yeah, it's pretty. Let's pick up a little more here. This reminds me of chromium oxide green. It's one of those paints that I'm going to go through pretty fast if I use. I can tell that already. I'm just going to have to use so much to get any strength out of it, but it's a lovely shade. Okay. Next we have another green. This is Aquarius Green. And another one of those paints, when I was watching others swatch it out and I saw the green, just like, oh, I have to get that, because it was just so beautiful. And again, I believe that it's a mix. Okay, right now you're hearing my kitten at the door, desperately wanting into my studio. I keep him out because he wants right on top of whatever I'm doing, which makes things very difficult. And I think what I was saying before the interruption is that Aquarius is a Roman Schmal mixture. I don't think anybody else has this particular mixture of green, which is PY150, which is going to be an azo yellow, PBR25, and PB29. And it's staining, it's granulating. It has a light fastness of 8, which is very good, and it is semi-transparent. And it would be helpful if I remember to open the pan of paint. Also, I can take time now to mention that the prices for these paints, even though you can't get them here in the US, so you have to pay overseas shipping, and then the wait time to get them, but the prices are really, really good because they're not half pans. These are full pans of paint, and their prices are just so good. Now that I have them, I was trying to be careful how many I bought because I'm on a bit of a budget at the moment. Now see, this one's sticking even though it's been in the fridge. But I'm on a bit of a budget at the moment. So I was trying to be careful how many I ordered. But now that I see them, I'm really wishing that I had just bit the bullet and bought about 10 more. But, oh well. Next time. I ordered these from Jackson's. And I've only ordered from Jackson's a few times. But every time I've ordered, they've been really, really good about getting the paint out and here, and everything's arrived safely and really well packaged, and it's just been really, really nice. Okay. Oh yeah. This very velvety green, very pretty. Very pretty color. I can see myself using this over taking the time to mix up my own. It's going to be a very, very handy green to have. Okay, it's very, very pretty. Okay, next I bought 2 grays, which again, you know, I'm saying to myself, Sharon, really? Because gray is something that I mix myself and I don't use straight out of the tube, but I saw these and just had to get them. And the first one is, I believe, a Polish name. I believe it's the last name of a painter. It must be a Polish painter. And it is very difficult for everybody to say, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's P-R-Z-Y-B-Y-S-Z. So, Przybysz Gray. That's probably the best I can do with that. But it looked just beautiful. Oh, there's a little flake of red in there. Can you see that? Yeah, the wax paper is definitely floating now on top, so I'm just going to try to clean that off a little bit and get that little red off of there so that it doesn't influence the color. I have noticed that some of them are a little more difficult to reactivate than others have been. And this seems to be one of those. Some of them, as soon as you hit water to them, they just turn into this creamy loveliness, but this doesn't seem to be doing that. Oops. Well, we'll see what happens with that. I think I mentioned that I'm not feeling too well today, so my hands are not as sure as they usually are. And just got some water on the top there. So we'll see how far that travels. Yeah, this one's definitely a little harder to get to work up. A little more time. That could be from the layer of wax that it has on top of it. Or it could just be the pigments that they've chosen to use. Okay, I'm excited about this one. Let's see what we've got. Oh, look how it's spreading out in the water. That's lovely. I just love to watch watercolor flow. Of course, when I was in school, we learned how to, we had to learn how to be proficient and oh, you can see the black coming through. We learned how to be proficient in many different mediums, but I just loved the way watercolor would flow in the water. It just seemed I wonder if I'm going to get some backwash because I'm just sticking more paint and water in there. Let's see what happens. It just seems so much more alive than the others. And it was cheaper. I was a student. So watercolor sort of became my thing when I had to declare a specialty. And I will admit the price was helpful in that decision. Because I was on my own, and makes a difference. Okay, last one is Payne's Gray. And I'm thinking to myself, Payne's Gray? Why did you order Payne's Gray? Because again, I don't even use Payne's Gray. I'm not sure my Payne's Gray tube is even any. I think I have two. Sennelier, because I have the entire line because I bought it. I don't think it's even been opened, but to swatch it out. So why have I bought this? And the only thing I can say is because when I was watching them being swatched out, it just caught my attention. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I think I want to see that one in real life, so to say. Oh, and it's gonna pull a little bit. That's okay. When I do my layering and my glazing tests, I will definitely use these for that. And I've been trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to do those because I'm used to tubes and I've never tried that with pans, and so I'm not sure what I'm going to do. But we will see what I figure out. Oh, and welcome to my first watercolor video. This is the first one, so hopefully they will only get better from here, guys. So I'm still trying to figure things out, and but hopefully there'll be many, many, many more in my future. Pretty. Very, very pretty. And I think, and I was looking at the, one of the reasons why I went ahead and got this, I was looking at the usual Payne's Gray mixtures, and this seemed very different from all of the others. So I am not sure. I would have to double check on this, but I think it's also a Roman Schmal only mix, which is probably why I decided to go ahead and get it. And it's very, very beautiful, dark and stormy sort of blue. It reminds me of maybe a indigo, I believe, but it's made of PBK9, PB27, and PR264, which is a black, a blue, and a red, and it's light fast 8. It's mid staining, non-granulating, and it's semi-opaque, and I'm not really seeing the opaque showing through right now. But then I see that very differently. They'll say that a paint's opaque or transparent, and I'll just be looking at it saying, really? So, okay. So we've now gone through all of the ones that I have. And let's go back and take a look at these. I think one of the cats must have snuck in because I believe they drank from my water bowl because I had a lot more water in there. All right, this was the golden yellow, and very, very pretty color, PY181, and I love that. I'm getting ready to do a painting of pumpkins. Well, one pumpkin, I should say. Now I've not done this before, so just straight out of a pan on usually. So let's see how this works. Just gonna do a little layering strip here. Okay. Interesting. Okay, and as I mentioned before, I'm also going to do some layering cards. We'll get started on those in just a minute, which is what these look like, and I'll tell you about those in a minute because I pretty much layer glaze all my paints. I very rarely even mix my colors on my palette. I'll just do it on the paper. And so I really need to know how Payne is going to work. So I just do one strip down the side as a quick reference, but I'll usually go to my other card just to see how it's going to work. Being truly glazed, because I believe it's 6 layers on my card that I do. And it's a very pretty color also. And as I said before, orange is a color that I have never appreciated before. So, very pretty colors. So it's a color that I don't have much of. So this is nice. Oh, and I see one of the cats has gotten into the studio. Lovely. Which one is that, honey?
It's Jake.
Jake. Oh, Jake is our older cat. Not the kitten. He is yeah, we're getting ready to put some new windows in the back part of the studio, and he is big enough to jump right up through that hole where there isn't a window right now. I was wondering how he got in. This is a recent thing too. This paint is, see, this one's saying semi-opaque, but it's looking very opaque to me. You can clearly see it on top of the black line, and even more so in this layer. And I can already see where it's lifted some of the paint that I had down before. So even though I really love this color, it's not going to be something I think that I'm going to be able to glaze with very often. Now we're going to pull out the Potter's Pink. And you know, there wasn't much of a color shift at all when it dried, which is really good because excuse me, some Potter's Pink can really brown. It can turn more of a brown color once it's dried, and I don't like that so much, and this has not done that. It's a lovely color. It's a very pretty color. Sorry, I know I'm reaching my umbrella, my shoulder right in front of you guys there, but couldn't be helped. Okay, Mineral Violet. This is dried lovely. You can, when it first went down, you couldn't really see much of the color separation when I set it aside, but you can really see the color separation coming out now. It's very nice. Okay. Alright, now to the Cerulean, the Cobalt Coelin Blue, PB35. It's dried very nice, very neat. I like it very much. Oop. And I just flipped it over, but it seems to be okay. Like I said before, very weak tinting strength, but it's one of the things I love so much about it. It's very nice. Okay, PB36 Cobalt Cerulean Blue. And much more intense, which is just the pigment itself. It's lovely. It's a lovely color. Okay, let's see if these are dry enough. These are not quite dry enough. So I'm going to pause the video for a minute. I'm going to get set up for my other glazing sheets, and we'll get started in on that. Okay, I did want to point out the difference between the two ceruleans. You have PB35 and PB36, and I'm just going to show you a couple of other ceruleans that I have. This would be my Winsor & Newton cerulean, which is my favorite. And looking at the two together, you can see a difference in color. And this one is more granulating. I just love the Winsor & Newton, and I think it's probably, looking at this, going to stay my favorite cerulean. I mean, I buy these tubes in the biggest tube that you can buy, and I just go through it so quickly. But the difference in the two pigments is PB35 is oxides of cobalt and tin, and then PB36 is oxides of cobalt and chromium. Now, usually PB36 will have a bias towards green, and your PB35 is going to be what you use. It's going to be more blue, and it's going to be more of an atmospheric green, which is what I love about it so much. So yeah, this PB35, I do not have as many PB35s as I do, or PB36s as I do PB35s, because the 35 is my favorite. But I definitely like the Roman Schmal over this sample, which I have, which is blocks. I just really do not like this one at all. And I think that is the only blocks tube of paint that I own. So, and that may be why. That is the only tube of paint that I own. It just doesn't work very well. This I like the Roman Schmal much better. But I have to say, I will use the Cobalt Coelin Blue just to see how it works. But so far, my favorite's going to be the Winsor & Newton. Okay, let's go ahead and do our glazing stripes down the side of the last four here, and then we can get on with what we're doing. This is the green earth. And I like how the green earth has dried. It's dried a little darker, a little more intense than what it goes on. But if you look at the black stripe, you can clearly see they have it listed, and I might want to go back here and check just to make sure. They have it listed as transparent, but that is not transparent to me. I can clearly see the paint on top of the black line, which is okay. I love the chromium of oxide green type of color, and this is what that reminds me of. It's okay, but I just think that to me that is not a transparent color. And if it's true to the other green earth that I have, it's not going to layer very well. It's going to, yeah. I still like it, but there are a few colors that I just can't glaze with, and I think that's going to be one of them. All right, Aquarius Green. We'll do our little stripe here. This is just such a pretty color. Such a pretty color. And this is going on well. Yeah, it's a great color to work with. It glazes well. Now that it's dry, you can see the granulation in there and the color separation. You You can definitely see a lighter green and a blue. It's very, very pretty. Very, very pretty. Sorry, that's the cat again. We're going to have to, I believe, do something about that. He has learned a new trick. This is a very dark color, a very beautiful color. You can see the green coming out. You can see the red coming out. In the separation, I definitely see the green and red, not so much the blue. Beautiful, beautiful color. And to me, this is more of just like a dark purple, not necessarily a gray. So, yeah, I love it. It's beautiful. Okay, last one, Payne's Gray, and then we'll move on. Here you can see the color separation again coming out, and it's very nice. When I first put it down, it looked very much like like just a deep blue. Now that it's dried, it is turning more of a gray. Definitely more of a bluish gray, more like a Payne's gray. It's nice.